All right, welcome to another Chicago Bears fan show. I am James, and in this special episode of the Chicago Bears fan show, I am going to be having a great debate with somebody, and I'd like to welcome that person right now to the show. Welcome to you. Yes, no need to introduce me. I'm clearly a smarter, more handsome version of you, the real James. Yes, my debate challenger. He, of course, needs no introduction. And, well, that is debatable, what you say there. But, anyways, in this debate, I'm going to be taking the positive side of the coin, while Orange Julius over there takes the negative. So, in this case, two wrongs do make a right, then. Yes, thank you for that. Anyways, that's done. Now, to the first point I want to make. The Bears right now have an 8-4 record, so we shouldn't be overreacting too much here. There's no need to worry, I don't think, with this team. They're sitting pretty for the playoffs, and they're tied for first place in the division. We shouldn't forget that. Okay, in terms of the Bears' record, all of this was built against poor teams, so let's keep that in mind. The wins came off teams with a combined winning percentage of 40%, whereas the losses the Bears sustained but against teams with winning percentages of 71%. They're only winning against the bad teams. In fact, the only win that came off a team that's over 500 to this point was against Indy in the first week, and let's be honest, that was a team with a new coaching situation and a rookie quarterback playing his very first NFL game. Sure, we can beat the bad teams, but when it comes down to it, they are what their record says they are. Okay, all that may be true. But the Bears have a great defense. So that's my second point. They have the second fewest points allowed per game in the NFL at this point in the season. The rushing defense is top 10 in the league in yards per game allowed. Passing defense, 7th overall in yards per game allowed. And they've got more turnovers generated than any other team in the league. Okay, first off, they've given up the fewest points because they've faced so many bad teams early in the year. And, really lately, though, they haven't been able to stop teams when it counts and closed out games really well, especially last week against Seattle. They looked old and slow. That's probably only going to continue as the season progresses. The rushing D's only given up the fewest yards per game because they got up on a bunch of teams. Now they're giving up 4.5 yards per attempt on average at this point in the season. That's not good at all. The pass D's been good, but lately they're mounting injuries. Tillman and now Jennings, who could be out for a few weeks. Chris Conte was out with the flu. Well, hopefully he's back, but who knows? And they've got a fading pass rush right now that's not getting a lot of pressure. Didn't last week, and they're allowing too many first downs. And the turnovers are great, but they can't always guarantee they're going to be there. And if the last few games have been any evidence that they've lost, they haven't been able to generate them consistent. All right, fine. You have your point, I guess. But let's be honest here. The pass game for the Bears on the offensive side of the ball is improving right now. That's a big part of the game that was missing earlier in the season. Something to be positive about. Cutler and Marshall. They are the dynamic duo right now, possibly one of the most dynamic pairs, quarterback and wide receiver in the league. The offensive line is actually looking really good with their new alignment. Their front five is looking to solidify week in, week out, getting better. And Mike Tice is calling plays better than I've seen him call them all year long to this point. Okay, yes, Cutler and Marshall are great. I agree. But good teams are going to clue in eventually, and they're going to do everything they need to stop Brandon Marshall, especially in the playoffs. They have the second lowest passing yards in the league when you measure it all up. Why is that? Well, they still have a very sketchy O-line that ends up having Cutler on his butt too often. And they've got no proven receiver able to help Brandon Marshall right now. Hopefully Alshon Jeffery's going to come back, but he's been injury prone. We can't count on that guy yet. Okay, now, the run game. The run game has been good and has a lot of promise, too. It's got one of the most dynamic players in the league in Matt Forte, let's be honest. Also, they've signed a good backup, Michael Bush, who's had some very positive runs this year. The offensive line is really built to run the ball, and you can say that the new structure should be able to run the ball potentially even better than it was before. And right now, they're 10th in the league in rushing yards per game. That's pretty darn good. Okay, Forte was a dynamic player. Right now, though, he looks timid, indecisive. He's having very poor games. Michael Bush is interesting, but he's not the answer, and he's fumbled the ball with a very few number of carries in a critical situation. The offensive line is not opening up a lot of holes lately, and they're only ranked high in rushing yards per game because of the big wins earlier in the year when they ran the ball so many times. They're only averaging 4.1 yards per carry as a team. That's been pretty poor lately. All right, all that's true. But the outlook for the Bears, we should say, looks pretty darn good right now. At least I think so. They've got games coming up against 3 of their last 4 teams they're playing that have losing records. 3 of these games are against important divisional rivals, 2 of which we've already beaten this year, so that bodes well. And there's still an opportunity to win the division as a result, and even get a bye and possibly host in the playoffs if things go right. So I think there's still a lot of good things to look at coming down the stretch this regular season. Okay, so the 3 games you're talking about against bad teams, they're on the road, and those teams are going to play tough at home no matter what the situation is for them. They also have their only home game left against the Packers, who, quite frankly, did a real number on them last time they played them and have been the nemesis for the Bears lately. And playoffs? You're talking playoffs? No, I'm not going to say it anymore, but we can still easily miss the playoffs. There's a couple teams that are coming up right now in Tampa and Washington Redskins that could make a real run at it. So, I don't know. I'm not convinced absolutely that we're going to make the playoffs, not to mention win the division or get a bye. All right. Well, you negative nerd. That concludes the debate between me and him. I'm obviously the clear winner on the side of the Bears in this debate, as you can obviously tell at home. Anyways, say goodbye, James. Goodbye, James. That wraps up a great debate. Not sure we solved anything, but at least we put the points on the table for us to consider as Bears fans. Anyways, feel free to subscribe. It's fun to subscribe. It's easy. Oh, check out my Facebook page, facebook.com/Chicago Bears Fan Show. You can get the updates directly when you're on Facebook. That's wild. I'll see you soon when I preview the game coming up against the Minnesota Vikings this week. Bear down.